Mr. Flintham, thank you for your time. Good to have you back on the show. We last spoke on the 15th of September. You had told me then that you were planning to raise $1.5 billion by selling assets, other things, which included selling real estate, etc. A month and a half has passed, and you filed sort of a release with the exchanges saying that you've appointed Morgan Stanley to help you do what you said you will mid-September, which is raise money, raise $1.5 billion or so. So my first question is, what took so long, sir?
I think the process is actually ahead of schedule. I think if you remember, it was the pledge is that we would look to raise around about $1 billion, of which half of that will come from our overseas sales and overseas equity sale, and half would come from India in terms of the sale of non-core assets plus sale of industrial assets as well. Overall, we're ahead of the program we set ourselves. We appointed Morgan Stanley a few weeks ago. We released the press notice today. But the most interesting thing in terms of our overseas operations is that we've had tremendous interest, far more than could be expected, and not only to buy equity, small equity in the overall business, but also to look at the outright sale of a couple of units. In particular, there's a lot of interest for the Tekfor group, which is the company we bought 3 years ago. We turned that round. It's a very profitable company, one of the world's leading forging companies in Europe and America. And there's a lot of interest in that as well. So I think I said at the time it would take something in the region of about 12 to 18 months to realise all this debt reduction plan. I think the way we're looking at the moment, certainly the 50% coming from overseas, I think we're looking more like 12 months than 12 to 18 months. So we're slightly ahead of the game rather than behind the game.
So how much are you raising finally? Is it $1 billion or $1.5 billion? How much are you? What's the mandate to Morgan Stanley?
Yeah, no, $1 billion. It's Morgan Stanley is half of that. As I said to you, the overall debt reduction plan, which is the figures I released on your show about a few weeks ago, was $1 billion minimum, of which 50% will come from overseas, and it's that 50% that Morgan Stanley are handling for us.
Okay. And on a lighter note, Morgan Stanley gets paid no matter what, or they get paid if they help you raise $1 billion?
No, as I said to you, Morgan Stanley are only targeted to do half of that billion, because that's where the overseas is coming from. Right, but I can't release any details of a contract we signed with Morgan Stanley.
Absolutely. Tekfor, right? I mean, that's the one asset. And I was reading up on that. So, I mean, from what I read, what I gathered was that you sort of, there was a battle for Tekfor. There was another group, I think it was a financial institution which sort of was fighting for control of Tekfor. You finally won the bid, and they might be interested back in the asset.
Yeah.
And from what I read, what I gathered was that, I mean, that is actually one of the very few players which is interested.
I'm sorry, no, that's not quite true. Yes, I mean, the battle to win Tekfor in the first place was with a number of people. If you remember, that, when we started this out 4 years ago, or 3-4 years ago, there were 60-odd people bidding for this business. It's one of the leading assets in Europe and America. We were successful, and not only been successful, but if you remember the figures, we were turning over around about 400 million euro at that stage and making about 6% EBITDA. It's now turning over about 500 million and making around about 10-11% EBITDA. So we've done a successful transformation of the business. In terms of people that's interested, we've had a large number of people interested in that particular asset, probably double digit in terms of, and we've been very surprised at the amount of interest from both financial institutions and trade buyers. So that's why we're a little bit more confident in achieving an advanced timing on the overall plan.
So this is 500 million euros or dollars?
The sales of Tekfor is 500 million euros.
Right.
And it makes
so this
around
is essentially about 50, 60 million euros in EBITDA, right?
10%, 11% EBITDA.
So that's about 50, 60 million euro
Yes,
EBITDA,
roughly.
right? Yeah. So then, how much would this fetch?
I think I've already said that our target is to raise $500 million US.
From Tekfor.
And the EBITDA actually will be slightly higher than that when we get round to it. But I think it's wrong of me to start talking about multiples and expectations when we're in negotiation with potential buyers. So I think we will come back and guide you on that at a later stage. Safe to say that the overall target, which is the $1 billion, half of US dollars, that half of that will come from overseas, half will come from India.
Sure. But this is obviously up for sale. Tekfor is up for sale, right? Is there any other assets which you'd look to sell as well, apart from this Tekfor, overseas?
Now let me be clear. Let me be clear. What we did was we launched a minority sale of our overseas business, which is all of our business. What's happened is, as part of announcing that, there's been a number of unsolicited bids for the Tekfor group. What we've got now, we've got choices. We can look which is the best value for this group in terms of what do we monetize. So we're still in the process of analysing what's the best next course of action.
Okay, fair enough. No, that's fine. But so there's the unsolicited bids. If there's something wild, you would obviously take it, right? I mean, a big blowout number, there's no reason for you to reject it. But you also obviously would work with Morgan Stanley to tell them, okay, these are things which we are okay parting with. So I'm just trying to understand, apart from Tekfor, what other assets could be on the table?
At this moment in time, we're sticking to the original plan that we'll either do, at this moment, we'll either do a minority stake in the overall business of overseas, or we will do, if the deal is better for the debt reduction plan and therefore the shareholders of Amtek, then we would obviously choose the latter. But as I say, we're still going through the calculations, and there's a lot of water to go under the bridge yet, but we're extremely satisfied with the reaction we've had from the market so far.
Okay, so the other 50%, which is India, where will that come from?
Yes. It comes from a mixture of two things. First of all, over the years we've accumulated quite a lot of industrial land and buildings which we don't need now, so we'll look to monetize that. And then secondly, sale of non-core assets in India, non-auto assets in India, which we've got quite a few. And those assets are being sold by a mixture of Grant Thornton and Ernst & Young. So between Grant Thornton, Ernst & Young and the management team, we're looking to monetize the non-core assets within India.
Okay, so this is about 9,000 crores, right? A little over 9,000 crores over the next 12 months. Let's assume that you're able to do this. There's still a lot of debt which will sit in the books.
No, $1 billion US dollars, which is around 6,500 crores.
Okay, 6.5. Sorry, I was working with $1 billion.
$1 billion dollars is around about 6,500 crores. Yeah.
Yes, 6.5. Apologies. So that still leaves about 10,000 crores, right?
No problem. The Amtek Auto consolidated debt is around about 12,000.
No, I saw. So this is there's nothing else which the group owes. I saw numbers closer to 17,000 crores.
We've got, yeah, if you add all the associated companies, we're at around about 16,000, yes, you're right. But if you focus on the listed company, then Amtek Auto's consolidated debt is around 6,500. That owns, by the way, all of the overseas business. So that's going to be the majority of this is going to come off of that debt.
What's your expectation? I mean, this overseas, the 50% which you're planning to raise from overseas, do you expect that this will get done smoothly? Obviously, you'd hope to, but it's also a bit of a fight for survival, right? For Amtek, and people that you're going to negotiate with know this, so they're going to try and hammer the price down. They're going to try the best that they can. So do you expect, in your experience,
I think
how much?
Yes. I think this comment. I think this comment about fight for survival is a bit over exaggerated. The management team are in complete control. There's been a lot of press speculation, and you guys, that's your job to try and poke this around. But we're not panicking. We know what our plans are. We have a very strong business. We have a very strong operating business, both in India and overseas. This is not a fire sale, and will not become a fire sale. Our overseas business is performing above expectations, and certainly above any of our competitors in Europe. So there's no need to be a fire sale. And I think that's demonstrated by the high level of interest, particularly in the Tekfor group. There's a high level of interest in that business. So I don't see how this can become a devalued asset or even sold cheaply. We wouldn't do that. We don't have to do that.
So, the 16,000 crore, if I include the associated companies as well, how much of this debt is in rupee terms? How much is it in, USD terms?
It's a mixture. It's a mixture of both. Obviously, we've got European debt as well. So what I will do is we're about to, that it's our year end. And in the next 2 weeks, we're having our board meeting. I'd rather come onto the show and give you the latest September figures when they've been released, because we are in a very delicate area in terms of being a public company. So I think in terms of giving you some forecasts on that debt side, I think I'll wait until the figures come out and then we'll come back again.
All the loans are being serviced properly? I mean, there's no issue so far? Because on the bank side, most of these loans are still standard. I mean, which means that they don't have to recognize it as otherwise. But anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, all our accounts are still standard. We're paying the interest on the loans. You know that because I told you last time, we are talking to the banks about realigning the bank debt in line with the latest cash flows in India, due to the pretty poor state of the Indian economy and the market that we're in. And those discussions are ongoing, but we remain in good shape with the banks.
All right, fair enough. Mr. Flintham, good luck, sir. Good speaking with you.